Welcome to Your Story or History, a podcast from Londonderry YMCA. I'm Catherine, the project coordinator.
And I'm Hannah, the project archivist. For the past year, we've been on a mission funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund to capture the voices that have shaped this organisation.
We have just celebrated 40 years at our Drummahoe site and are approaching a massive milestone, our 170th anniversary. But history isn't just about dates and buildings, it's about people.
We've invited former and current members, volunteers and staff to sit down with us and share the stories that don't always make it into the history books. These memories make our living archive.
In this episode, we go back to the very beginning of the Londonderry YMCA Rugby Club with its first ever captain, Eddie Nutter. Eddie shares how the club was formed to meet the growing demand for rugby in the city and the immense responsibility of leading a brand new team, from selection and fixtures to building a squad from the ground up. Eddie reflects on what truly makes a great player and how his leadership role taught him the art of communication and assessing character. He takes us to the pinnacle of his career, the cup final at Ravenhill, and tells the unique story of Stan Huey's boots, a trophy he personally crafted for local matches. It's a story of sport, leadership and how the drive of its members made the Londonderry YMCA a recognised name in rugby across the 9 counties.
So, what is your name?
My name's Edward Nutter, Eddie, as I was known.
Tell me a wee bit about yourself now. So your age, if you're still working or if you're retired, and then some of your hobbies. Just who are you now?
Yes, I'm now retired. I worked for local government, local council for 35 years. I'm now 67 and glad, peaceful retirement. Very happy with.
What did you do with the council?
I started off just in general an operative, and I kind of ended up a manager in charge of the operational side of the council, the grounds maintenance, street cleaning and refuge collection.
Very good.
Uh-huh.
Are you married? Do you have any kids?
I was married. Don't have any children.
So tell me how you got involved with the YMCA Rugby Club.
It came about, I played rugby before that, but that was mostly down at Limavady, and it was the other players that were there, namely Huey and Keith Anderson, who had been talking to people about maybe starting another rugby club, because there was quite a few of us down in Limavady. So that's where I then came up with that group of us, about 5 people, to talk about and develop the thing, because the YMCA were just starting up and they seen this as an opportunity to develop another rugby club in the town here, you know. So that's where I sort of got involved with it at the very start. But primarily it was just with the formation of the rugby, not exactly the YMCA, although they were all starting at the same time, you know.
So describe a typical day or session with the rugby club. What did you do?
We would have arrived here probably around 6:30 for training. So we would train 2 nights a week. It usually was a Monday and a Wednesday night. And we came here, got changed. We went down to the pitch, did various types of physical training, rugby training, and looked down at the aspects of the last games and things to see what way we could change that. You were also involved in, or I was at the time I was captain, and that was the development and selection of teams and players and things like that. So there was always on the Monday night, a selection meeting to discuss the previous match and what way going forward, and to develop it like that. And in terms of the difficulty, you had to make sure that the team were all notified that they were playing for the Saturday, where it was, what it was, times of leaving, and more importantly, making sure you had 15 players for the game, you know. So all of that was, there was then injuries and things like that. You had to sort of look after players that might have had not so much serious injuries, but certainly ones that would have capacity.
What would have been like a common injury?
More strains and things like that, muscle injuries, sprains, ankles, knees. Occasionally there would have been sore necks and things like that, so just general rugby injuries.
And what would have made like a good rugby player in your eyes?
I think it was individually someone who understood the game, someone who had the very good basic skills of it, running, catching ball, tackling and things like that, and then being very specific to his position or a number of positions, a forward, a back, and learning the game very well like that. And also someone who could think during the game, against the opposition, exploit their weaknesses and things like that. And you usually find that those very good players always played in key positions, out halves, scrum halves, props, forwards, that type of thing,
Could you tell me a wee bit about the trophy that you made?
The trophy, it's known as Stan Huey's boots. What you find in rugby, and particularly in the Northwest, there was regular little games between ourselves and Londonderry or City of Derry or across the border in a shown and that. Rugby itself is a 9-county game as opposed to 6, and it makes up the Ulster side of it. But you played those teams regularly, and it was always like games at Christmas or this type of thing. And the boots came about. Stan Huey played with the opposition at the City of Derry, and he decided to give these as a trophy for the games that we played, so he would play for the boots. And the boots just arrived tied together. That was it. So what I did, I sat down and made a wee mahogany stand for them and put a wee name on it, sort of carved that, and then wrote on it that these are the boots, and I was very pleased to see it's still in existence. The boots are sad for wear, but no, it was there. Sadly, I think we played maybe 3-4 games for those, and then what happens with the older sides, they change and people go different directions and things. So, but they were there and they were always kept. We won them the last time, so that's why they stayed here. So,
I suppose, was the team cross community, or was that ever sort of discussed, or could you tell me?
Not in rugby. It was never discussed because it was cross community. People came to play the match. I played at Londonderry, and there were GAA players playing and things like that, and we had 1 or 2 here as well. And because of the structure of the rugby, you're playing in Monaghan, Donegal and Cavan as well, and you're also travelling to Dublin to watch matches and things like that in the interprovincials. It never was a game that was, as you say, sort of focused on one part of the community and not the other. The one slight thing about that is it was mostly in school terms played at the sort of more Protestant schools, but players who trained in GAA and that preferred then at club level to come in there and play for the clubs, and learn their game there. But that's really the way it was.
Could you tell me a wee bit about your uniform?
Your
strip, as it called?
The strip, yeah. The strip came about, originally it belonged to a hockey team, or sorry, it was the image, it was the old YMCA hockey team from yesteryear, and that was the one thing, there were photographs of that, and somebody had a shirt. So we decided that was what we would adopt as a club shirt, and we played in that for quite a long time. The shirt changed then to a plainer image. I think you have some out there, and the reason for that was the expense of the other one. It just became too expensive to actually make and replace, so a plainer shirt was adopted. But the original one was historically the YMCA's from East Wall, the hockey team, I think it was. I remember seeing photographs of that, and the colours and that was the same.
Yeah. What is the single most memorable moment or event you experienced as part of the rugby team? Can you describe like the atmosphere and the feeling of the event?
Yes, it's quite simple because twice the club ended up in cup finals in Belfast at Ravenhill, and that is the pinnacle of you playing at Ravenhill against other sides. And the first time that happened, it was a bus up. Everybody was excited, and we won that match. It was a cup game. I'm trying to think of the name of the cup it was, but that was a build up and a build up for that. And then that night, when you won it, the game was at 8 o'clock at night or something, and when you won that cup, then it was like, that's it. That's, it's really amazing feeling and things. And the enjoyment of, we actually went back to, it was Londonderry Rugby Club, and then back down to the city here, and just enjoyed the trip, So for me, that was that big moment, going to play in the hallowed turf of Ravenhill as it was, and enjoy that.
Perfect. So I know that you sort of discussed some of the challenges, being injuries and all. Was there anything else, or?
No, I think it's just the rugby is something that particularly we had two teams, the first and the seconds. The seconds would had to donate players to the first if there were injuries and things like that. So then the seconds you had to focus on them to make sure they had a full squad and everybody out. You had more players than you needed. There's 30 players on a Saturday playing with two teams, but you had to have more than that. So it was then sort of turning that around so people got games all the time, weren't sort of left out, and bringing people in and trying to train them up and to focus them and to get them to not only play their best but improve to a good level, and then try and entice other players in from other clubs, to enjoy it with us as well. So that was an ongoing thing, there was some interesting moments in selection meetings.
Did people fall out?
Yeah, there were very constructive arguments, let's call them that, where, people would like to sort of keep the good players on the seconds and things like that there. It was the same in every club. Limavady and City of Derby was the same, but no, it was a very good experience in terms of the meetings were, as I said, constructive, but at times, you could see the wee gameplay that was going on, you had to be careful of it.
So thinking back in your time, what was the most valuable skill, lesson, or friendship you gained from the experience?
It's
all three.
Very simple. I'll put them all together, and it comes from then my career in the council. What I learned was the ability to talk to people. What I learned was the ability to sort of assess and judge people's skills and whatever it might be. I learned to, one of the things was, I was also a chairman of the club, the rugby club, and had to look after the finances and things. And we ran finances on a very low level because, we didn't have, most clubs have a bar and things like that. We didn't. So there was no income there. So we had to do things. And I learned very quickly to manage money, budgets and things like that. And that really became an important part of my working life as well. So there were basic skills there that I absolutely took with me in life itself. In the council, I ended up doing a massive amount of interviews and stuff for all sorts of jobs, up to middle management jobs. And that's why, because you could talk to people and discuss things with them and all of that sort of stuff,
That's brilliant. So my last question is, thinking about the Londonderry YMCA as a whole, what do you believe was the most significant or contribution or positive effect the rugby had on the organisation during the time?
I think it was this in my mind. People talk about the YMCA. It was a place in Belfast. Never mind the pop group from America who sang YMCA song, Village People. But no, what the rugby did was make YMCA sort of a feature in the 9 counties as it was. People would talk about it, They didn't know what to expect when they came here. What is the YMCA? So it's that integration of an organisation and then the sporting side of it, the rugby, and developing the rugby down there and playing fields and things like that, because there was quite a number of sort of show matches and things like that. So what it did was definitely promote it and sold the YMCA as an organisation throughout the Northern Ireland, and as I say, Cavan, Donegal and Monaghan as well, people that began to know and talk about it, so for me that's what it was. It was taking that another direction and place,
Can you tell me a wee bit about the badge that we have out there? Because I know that you were speaking about that and what the symbols meant. Can you just tell me a wee bit about that?
Yes, there was a couple of things about it. At the time we didn't have a badge, so we decided then so various ideas where people drew out different things and they were all over the place. And I remember at a meeting, there was a thing that happened here quite frequently was the river would overflow and flood the playing fields and things like that. And it happened prior to the development of the badge and that. And the salmon on the badge comes from that, where as the water was disappearing and draining through, and there was one salmon flapping about in the water, and somebody went down and picked it up. And they thought they were going to take it home, but no, they took it down and they put it in the water and away it went, So that then became a symbol of the club, We have to have our salmon on the badge, So that was, and the rest of it, as I say, was developed from the various little drawings and things that people had and what they were about, So that's how the badge was developed.
And is there anything else that you think I should ask you or should be included in this interview that's important?
I think it's everything you've asked me is pretty relevant, and I think that's the important thing. Is that the one thing I would say is that the club developed friendships both on a social level and all over the place with various people, and those still exist to this very day. The people still sit and talk about things that happened 20, 30 years ago, so that's one of the good sides of it.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Eddie.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Story, Our History.
Our living archive is still growing. If you have a story from the last 40 years at Drumahoe, we want to hear from you.
You can get in touch by messaging us on Facebook or Instagram at Londonderry YMCA Heritage, or emailing heritage.lderry@ymca-ireland.net.
This project is kindly funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. Be sure to follow our podcast so you don't miss our next story.
Because our history
is your story.